Hello, my name is Ann Thompson. This is my research presentation for English 38, Literature of Protest. The text I chose is entitled Heartberries. It is written by Therese Marie Malhut, and it is her memoir, autobiographical regarding the author herself. It was published fairly recently in February 2018. I'd like to discuss some of the themes that I encountered in Heartberries. First off, there was a consistent theme of violence and abuse throughout the book. The author shares various memories and recollections of her father, including one where her brother describes their father as worse than punches, and proceeds to tell the story of her brother Guy, punished by being pulled into a room by their father and locking it behind them, her other brother admitting he was unaware of what would occur in there. She also shares that her brother and her sister were still scared of their father, even as adults, when he came to Therese's home with a filmmaker. Later on in the book, she details a rather vivid image or memory of her father taking a shower with her. She recalls his smell and an instance where she drew a naked man next to a little girl in her notebook. Presumably, this is a picture of her and potentially her father. She also talks about various lovers in the past who have been violent or abusive, such as one who dug his knuckles into her. And another, the author admits she penetrated or stabbed with a fork after he heard her say no, implying to the reader that he may have been pressuring her sexually. Interestingly enough, the author also recounts various instances where she engaged in violence towards herself, such as hitting the sides of her head, and also towards both her ex-husband and now her current husband. In the book, she surrounds an entire chapter around the black eye that she herself had given to her current husband. Amid the abuse, she illustrates what I interpret as destructive relationships. She shares experiences with partners in the past whom abused her, also lied, cheated, and even given her an STD. She explains that she only married her first husband because she had aged out of foster care. Despite this, she still had 2 children with him, and she details how they would push each other during their marriage, even in the presence of their child. The author openly admits that at a point in time, she purposely would date men she knew she saw no future with. And she even recounts a trip where she went, and she even recounts an instance where she goes on a trip with a man she barely likes. At one point in the book, she states in relation to her partner that he was her, quote, savior, and her feelings for wanting to check into a mental health facility were the result of his neglect. Which leads us to the theme of mental health. The author in the book writes her now husband from a mental health facility. She discusses attending group therapy and feeling like she didn't belong there. However, she also shares with the reader instances in which she felt suicidal and even attempted, but with no success. She also describes many personal feelings of a general lack of self-worth or self-perception. She says to someone, "I look for external validations of worth, and I always end up going crazy over it." She also writes, "I know at my worst, I appear disposable, or that I make myself that way." The following is an excerpt from Heartberries, page 16. You should have thought before you made a crazy Indian woman your lover. Feel culpable in my insanity because you are partly to blame. Don't think less of me for being crazy. Don't think that I'm the only one culpable in my craziness. I believe that this excerpt is a clear and understanding example of the consequences that can result from one's foundational roots. When we look at the author's story and we examine her experiences as a Native American youth in poverty, the sexual and or physical abuse that she suffered, her time in the foster care system, her experiences as a young bride and a young mother, we have to consider how all of these factors may or may not have played into the author's negative self-image and poor coping mechanisms. She describes in the book that she has hit herself, she has hit others, she's destroyed property, and she's been in consistent emotional turmoil when faced with situations or instances in which she had difficulty coping. The text brought to the surface a few different issues and corresponding questions. The author shared some of the things she endured as a youth, but I don't think that we have really acknowledged the difficulties Native American families face even still today. There is a fundamental lack of resources, education, opportunities, and I don't think that we as an American society have truly become aware of the impact that this has, especially on Native American families and youth. The text also addresses domestic abuse across genders. The writer shares a few instances where she had experienced abuse at the hands of a male partner. However, she also candidly shares instances where she was abusive towards a male partner. This definitely brings into question the way that we look at domestic abuse, gender to gender, and how we interpret situations and the resulting victim, often based on their gender or with their gender in mind. And also, of course, as a central theme, the mental health issues that Therese faces are common today, and I believe that it's important for people, not only those that themselves ail from them, such as the author, but the people in their lives and who surround them, and the need for understanding and acceptance. She details that when her and her current husband broke up, that he, along with a colleague, had described that she had wanted too much. And she attributes this and eventually comes to terms with taking responsibility of her poor coping mechanisms and the issues that she faces. So it really comes down to awareness for the people around her and the people understanding and reading her story, along with her own self-recognition of her character defects and how they impact her and how to evolve from them. And rather than feeling such self-negative worth, to feel self-love.